Hey, everybody, welcome to Test, Fail, Learn, Grow. This is a show where we're going to get real about what it takes to become the kind of leader the world actually needs. Now, this isn't about highlight reels or overnight wins. This is about the messy middle, the bold moves, the stumbles, the mindset shifts, the shape, how we show up in business and in life. I'm your host, Adam House, and today's guest is a man who's walked through fire, literally and figuratively. His story is about risk, resilience, and the quiet kind of discipline that doesn't just change your health, it transforms how you lead. So I'm honored to welcome Dr. David Yerkes, also known as Doc Holliday, to the show. He's a physician, a champion level marksman, and a military officer, a high performance health strategist working with executives and elite performers to optimize energy, clarity, and longevity. But beyond the credentials and the impressive career path, David is a fellow member of the House of Bricks community. As you know, one of our core bricks is in helping veterans or empowering veterans to transform from the battlefield to the boardroom. And he's been a great part of our community. It's been an honor to get to know him, and I know everyone is going to enjoy this. So, David, welcome. Let's jump in.
Thank you for having me.
So let's rewind, and you're welcome, by the way. So I don't know if you're supposed to say you're welcome to that or not. People always say it. So I want to rewind to the moment, right, when you made that leap. You were leading a hospital program you helped build in your hometown, and you were surrounded by familiarity, stability, and trust. And then you stepped away. What pushed you to take that risk?
It was a combination of factors. So, I'd spent a lot of time working toward this point in my career where, I went through college, medical school, residency, went through over a decade of being a attending physician and helping grow a hospital program. I was more of an informal leader in that program. The medical director, John Huff, is actually one of my business partners in one of my businesses. But in that program, in that hospital setting, I had served as chief of medicine. I had served on multiple different committees, and really kind of like just really helped drive change in that hospital and help the hospital grow from kind of a community hospital to more of a regional referral center. And that was something I was very proud of, and something I really identified with, is being a hospital medicine doc there at that hospital. So it really took a lot for me to make that leap. It was a big deal for me, even an identity change for me, and something I really hadn't envisioned ever happening. It's something I didn't really see myself doing, and this is a little bit of a long story, but it took a lot for me to get to that point. So I'll try to be quick with it. So I became a father in 2016. At the same time, so about 6 weeks prior to going to the Army's aviation medicine course. And so when I was going through that, one of the things that they instilled in us was a different look at medicine. It was more of a, not even preventive, but a way to optimize health, a way to look at health a little bit differently to try to improve performance of aviators and special operators and aircrew. So that was something I hadn't really been exposed to. Every traditional or conventional medicine is really treatment based and working on putting out fires, which is also needed, but it was just a different view of medicine. So I was exposed to that then. And then in 2018, my father had 7-vessel bypass surgery. At the same time, I'd been working in the hospital as a hospital medicine doc for now, at 2018, it'd been 6 years I was in the hospital, and just seeing kind of the end causes or the end results of chronic illness and just bad health environment and all the things that everybody's talking about now. Back in 2018, it was really impacting me kind of in my soul. I just felt like there was a need to do something more and do something different. So that's when I started kind of working on this program, doing a lot of deep investigation into not just the biochemistry of what is the right way to do things, but also into the research, but also into habits and habit change and the psychology of why don't people do what they need to do and that kind of thing. So I started working on that in 2018. In 2019, I was deployed to the Middle East, and I got back home about a month before my second child was born, my second son. And then that was at the end of 2019. And then 2020 COVID happened. And that was about 2 years of my life that just was a blur. I did serve as chief of medicine in 2020 as well. So that was an additional, just kind of very busy time. At the same time, I continued to work on my mission because I never lost sight of that. It was very busy, but every moment I had, I was trying to figure out the best way forward. Initially it started as a book. I thought maybe it'll be a book, maybe it'll be a course. I wasn't really sure what direction it would go. I just wanted to help people with their health. And so obviously over the last 7 years, that's evolved into the business I have now. But yeah, that's kind of what led me to making that leap. I just felt like there was something that was needed. I was compelled basically to do this. Almost like a sense of service, but I really wanted to change the world. Of course, that was a little bit a little bit naive, but and we'll talk a little bit about some of the naive mindsets I had at the time, but it was well-meaning.
Well, with a naive mindset, you're in good company. So that's how I've lived my life for 30 years. But a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, you've got the military service, then you have the emotional component, right, with your father, which is a great motivator, right, to solve problems, seeing it, especially when there's an emotional attachment. Then you have our entire healthcare system. A lot of people call it sick care, right? It's all just responsive and not integrative or preventive. And I've been around that, having lived in Miami in the early 2000s. A lot of things that people are talking about now, like peptides and IVs, like they had that, in the mid to early 2000s. Just it was more commonplace, but it just makes sense, right? And with the human body, there's so many variables, like, genetics, environment, diet. So to really find out the root cause of what's going on is a complex problem to solve. And then you throw in having 2 kids, then you throw in COVID. So there's no way on earth that this actually ended up going how you thought it would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to be honest, I didn't even know how it was I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I had no business acumen whatsoever. Although I've always had an entrepreneur spirit. Even when I was a child, I remember in Michigan going door to door, shoveling snow and picking up cans and turning them in. Now in Kentucky, we don't have the refund that we did in Michigan, but
yeah.
As a child, we would do that. And I mean, I would do anything to just kind of earn and work. And I always had that spirit. And, I ended up going kind of in a traditional job, a traditional role job, but I've always had that I bought my first real estate property when I was 21. And boy, we could talk about some failures there, about 10 years of failures. But I don't know if we have time in the show today to talk about all my failures in real estate, but I still do it because that was an expensive education. And but yeah, that has always kind of driven me. I've always been had that entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't think of it like that, but now looking back, I realize that was always in me. But I didn't really know. I didn't have the training or the background or the knowledge to start a business. I just wanted to start something. And one of the things I ended up doing was hiring a coach. And unfortunately got some really bad advice that set me back a couple years. Of course, had I known what I know now about speed and iteration and all those things, it wouldn't have set me back so far. But I was very naive when it comes to business, and I didn't have a good business mentor Adam, if I had known you back then, you could probably save me a lot of time. But
I was just going to clarify, I was not his business coach or advisor. I wanted to make sure.
The bad advice did not come from Adam.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was one of those things that was probably technically, general good advice. So the advice was, nobody wants a generic health offer. People just do weight loss. Just do weight loss.
Right.
but that's not really what I was passionate about. Now, yes, weight loss matters. Weight management is a part of health and longevity and performance and all of those things. But I didn't want to pigeonhole, and they say the riches in the niches. I wasn't doing this for that. I really wanted to help people transform their health. And so that felt off to me, but I did it because I started down that path because that's what I was told to do. And then they said, well, and they're like, well, who's your avatar? And I thought, well, I'm passionate about fathers,
Yeah.
and they said, well, no, women buy weight loss offers more than men. So you should go after women. And I'm thinking, all right, so I guess my new avatar is a woman. But now all these years later, I realized that was just wrong. That's not, I mean, yes, by the way, I do help women and it's not just men, but when I think of my avatar, right, my one single person, that's what they tell you to do in business, that one single person, it's a father, that's a businessman that's just crushed it in life and crushed it in business, but maybe has, neglected parts of their health, and they're realizing, hey, I want to be around, I want to see my grandkids. I want to see my kids do things. I want to do stuff with my kids in the future or my grandkids. And so, maybe they've realized that they need to get their health in order and they want to do the right thing. And they're a high performer. They know hard work. They can put the work in. And those people are fun to work with, or maybe an athlete that, and that's a different side. The performance medicine is a little bit different than the longevity. It's actually a little bit easier, but anyways, that was the advice I had gotten. And so I went along with it and I tried to do I tried to be coachable and that kind of thing. But it turns out that cost me some time and energy, but I always learned something. I learned something from like we're talking about today. I always try to find the lesson. And so, yeah, that kind of cost me some time, but I just keep moving forward. I'm a pretty resilient person. And that's all I know to do is just keep going forward.
Well, it's really the theme of the show, right? It's testing, failing, learning, and growing. And people say to me sometimes, like, what would you tell your 19-year-old self? I tell them nothing, because I wouldn't know what I know if I didn't fail. And if I didn't go through the process, then I wouldn't be where I am. It was iterative testing, failing, learning, and growing. We're even doing that now in the House of Bricks with our community, with the podcast. The most difficult thing I've done is trying to build a personal brand, build a community, but it's rewarding in the process, getting great people like you and our other community members involved. And I do understand trying to find that ICP, right? Who's your ideal client profile? But a lot of people actually narrow that down too soon. And you cast a wide net, and I think you've landed in the right place in what you're doing. And so was it really a failure, right? You started with a test, you failed, but if you didn't go through that wide net to narrow, maybe you wouldn't be where you are. And then we always trust God's timing of when things happen and when they work. So one door opens, another closes. So what do you see? And again, there's so many different things you're talking about, balancing family and the military, going through COVID, trying to disrupt one of the most difficult industries, which is healthcare. And a person has so many variables to their health. Like you said, everyone just wants to lose weight and look good. Well, short-term weight loss can oftentimes cause long-term damage. But what would you say is the big takeaway of what you learned through this process?
Yeah, like you said, there was so many things. There were so many lessons. I mean, there's business lessons, there's personal lessons. I learned way more than I thought I would learn ever about health optimization and longevity and performance. Even as a qualified physician, practicing conventional medicine that's not something you see a lot of. You have the basic understanding of human physiology and that kind of thing, but I love biochemistry, and that's kind of where I went back to my roots in biochem. And really studied and had some great mentors in that area some health optimization physicians, Dr. Ted Achicoso and Scott Schur. Did a great job mentoring me as far as learning that side of things. And then, also developed some things on my own, just my own research and my studies and things like that, as far as developing a system. And like you said, it's so complex. And I think that's one of the things that frustrates me about the wellness industry is people really they get one bullet, like you need to do methylation or whatever. And they try to say there's one magic thing that is this great thing. And it may have some, it may have a role, but health is so complex, and most people don't really give credit to how complex our health is. And there are fundamentals there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, what the fundamentals are, but there are fundamentals, but then there's a lot of nuance to that. And so when you hear people on social media talking about very, very rigid absolutes, unless they're talking about some of the fundamentals, and even when talking about some of the fundamentals, they're probably not right. They're probably selling something or something like that, because the bottom line is there's nuance to everything. So that's one of the things that, me coming from the conventional medicine side, I understand that side, but I'm also very, I wouldn't say open-minded to anything new that comes in, but that should also be tested. And it should be rigorously, there should be some evidence. There shouldn't just be, an idea. There should be some evidence. And the better, this is kind of how I judge it. I'm getting a little bit off on a rabbit trail. So
you're good. We're following you.
Okay. So if there's the less evidence there is, the better, potential benefit and the lower risk there should be. So like if it's a higher risk for harm or cost or anything like that, it better have more evidence to support it. I'm talking about human outcome evidence is our best evidence, right? So if it's just mechanistic theory, then it better not have a very high risk of any, negative outcomes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that, you have to look at and weigh when you're giving advice to somebody. And it also has to fit. The other thing is, I'm sure a lot of our entrepreneurs that are interested in wellness, they know who, I just forgot his name. He sold his company to PayPal. He's super wealthy. And now he's devoted his life to longevity. Brian Johnson.
Okay.
I appreciate what he's doing for longevity, but not everybody can live that life. Most people cannot live that life, right? Where every single second of your day is devoted to your longevity. That's not realistic for most people. So what we need to do is we need to find something that actually is realistic and does move the needle and does get you, where you want to be without having to be obsessed with every single second and every molecule and that kind of thing. So that's my goal, is to curate all that information, gather it all, spend my life devoted to that, so you don't have to. But anyways, I'm not even sure I remember what your initial question was, because I got on a little bit of a rabbit trail. But that's kind of how I approach. Oh, you said, what did I learn? And then so that was kind of what I learned from a health optimization standpoint. One of the things, what I learned from a business standpoint, and this can be applied to our health as well, is be faster. I have to be, one of the things, if I had known, I said a minute ago, if I had known what I know now, one of the things I know now is fail faster. You've heard other people say that.
Yeah. Fail
faster, get to the next, and just keep going. Just keep iterating and doing those things. And just, I tend to be somebody, and this is I'm a product of my training in a way. In medicine, you don't want to fail ever you don't want anything good to go wrong whatsoever. That doesn't mean nothing ever goes wrong, but you do, there is a higher cost, right? And even in trying to help somebody and advise somebody on their health, there are real tangible negatives that could come with giving somebody bad advice. And so I recognize that. I'm not too hard on myself for being more careful. It's not, a business where I'm doing, Amazon FBA or something like that. This is, dealing with people's lives and their health. So I was a little more cautious about just being frivolous about my advice and my program and things that I do. But also I recognize now that I could have moved faster. There's things I could have changed quicker, and pivoted more quickly. And one of the things, the way I learned that is when I did start saying, one of the things that I did was I started taking cohorts small. I did a group of people for like a much lower cost than I would typically do, just to kind of do that iteration and find out what they're looking for, how they respond to different types of information, and going through the processes in different states, because I work in multiple states. I don't just have one little clinic locally. I have clients all over the place. So, going through that, what I had tried to do originally was just perfect this system, and I was paralyzed with trying to perfect that instead of just doing it and noticing improvements along the way.
Yeah. So with all of that, right, in healthcare, even what the person tells you, you can't necessarily take at face value. Like, what are they eating? What are their genetics? What are their lifestyles? And to speak to like the things on social media, what does work for one person may not work for another. And so people try to do what that one person is doing. Like, I could do Michael Jordan's jumping program for the rest of my life. I'll never dunk from the foul line. There's just so many different variables, sleep, stress levels. And what I've noticed, I've gone through different phases of diets and lifestyles, the vegan, the juicing, the paleo, the superhuman diet, and those can almost cause like more stress on your body, because you go to a birthday party, you're like, man, I can't have a piece of cake. Like, it just becomes miserable. So like you said, it's not something everyone wants to devote their life to longevity, but there's foundational things that people can do. And the challenge you have is your clients or patients are watching TV, they're watching social media, they've got a buddy at work that's on some other diet. So there's so much noise and so many other voices out there that you're competing with. How do you manage that?
Well, one of the ways I manage it is I do have to not only stay up with the evidence of what is new and what is legitimate, I also have to stay up to speed with the things that are the kind of the nonsense that's out there too. And a lot of the things that I may put in the nonsense category has some validity to it. Like, if you do keto and you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. There are some other health benefits to keto, and just as an example. So I wouldn't even put that in the nonsense category, but it is also not the end all be all to everything, right? And it can also cause some negative health effects, as you were mentioning. So how do I deal with that? With patience and just grace. And and being informed, I have to be able, in my opinion, so I'm not a proponent of inhibiting speech. Sometimes it gets frustrating, right, to see things put out there that are just scamming people. But I believe that the best way to combat falsehoods is with better information and being better at just informing people with the truth. And so I do that with my clients, and my clients, we have a very close relationship, and they trust me, and they do come to me with a lot of those things, and they send me clips from Instagram and things like that. And I'm able to, but it actually is rewarding to me to be able to have that opportunity to give them the truth. And so it's not everything they send me is nonsense. Some of it is good information, but yeah, that's how I deal with it, is just with grace. I've chosen not to be the person that sits there and goes on social media and does rebuttals to all these videos.
No.
I think that it will take a toll on my soul. I don't think I can be that person. There are people out there that do that and do a very good job of it, but that's not my brand, and that's not who I want to be. Just for my own, honestly, for my own mental health.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you couldn't pay me enough to do that, because they're waiting for you, and then they just want to argue back and
That's the other thing. And if you look at the comments, and it's, who are you going to really convince? And everybody's going to think you're shilling for somebody, big Apple or big pharma or somebody like that. And I'm not. I'm just trying to help people find the truth and be the best version of themselves. But so I'm not interested in trying to do that. I just help the people that come to me, and that actually, it kind of leads us into one of the other things that I had noticed. Originally, I wanted to save everybody, basically, and try to figure out how to convince people they need to change their lives. And I realized that I can't do that. There are things that you can do. But it has to be cultural. Really, we have to change our culture. We can't. I'm not, as an individual, going to go out there and be able to convince people to eat different or to take better care of themselves. But I do think there's a shift that's happening. I think there's more physicians that are speaking out on this, and different people in the health and wellness space that are really trying to push for a cultural change. And I think we're seeing it. We have a lot more work to do, but so I think I can be part of the solution, but I'm not going to be the entire solution.
No, and if you're trying to convince someone with their health, like, of anything you can't sell them on, like, if they're not bought in, it's pretty tough to get them to, it's difficult to do even if you want to do it, but convincing them to do it is even more difficult, and it's not sustainable, and it just wears you out. That's the thing that I noticed too. We did some health coaching back in the day, and it was the most frustrating thing that I tried to do was they say they want it, and then they don't follow through. But I guess that's consistent in really all areas of life, whether it's building a business or family. It's all about consistency, and, like you said earlier, being resilient. So we've gone through the test, the failing, the learning. Now we get to the exciting part where we can talk about the growth. I know your practice is going well. You're excelling as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband. So all those things are growing, but I know you went through that process to get there. But as we close out here, let's talk about kind of the growth aspect and where your vision's headed.
Yeah, growing is something I try to do every day. I'm constantly learning and growing, and I still have a long ways to go on that. And I wouldn't pretend to have it all figured out, but there are some things that I have, at least cognitively, been able to figure out, and employing that into my life and actually making those changes can be challenging. So one of the things is just, I tend to take on too much and try to do too much. And I'm still trying to work through that right now. I've got the two businesses, and I'm still in the Army Reserve, and I just spent a couple weeks at Fort Knox, and I'll be spending a couple weeks at Camp Perry in July and with the marksmanship team. So there's still a lot of things that I've got on my plate, and it is a challenge right now because I do have the two businesses that are really starting to kind of take off, and I'm trying to navigate that. I do have a business partner in my other business, and he takes a lot of that. So he takes a lot of the things off my plate. I'm not a solopreneur in that. Hiring a VA and employing a VA to get some of the administrative tasks off of my plate. I've been able to really become more in tune with disciplining myself with my schedule and my calendar, which is something that discipline equals freedom. You may have heard Jocko Willink has coined that, and that took me a long time to really figure that out, because a lot of people, especially to somebody who isn't really crazy about structure, that can be feel very restrictive. But once you discipline yourself, you realize that you're actually freeing yourself from the chaos and the uncertainty, and people may feel like a fear of commitment or committing to, can we have this meeting this time, or that fear of commitment is it comes from a lack of discipline, because you don't have control over your own self and over your own time and over your own, maybe your own health. And so that's one of the biggest areas that I continue to try to grow in. I still have a lot of room for growth there. And it's probably the biggest area I've identified as a place for me to grow is learning to say no to more things, and also disciplining myself in the areas that I'm weak in. And one of those areas is my schedule.
I'm the same way. Like every week, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start blocking time. I know Paul sees it. I block this on my calendar, and then like someone's like, oh, I want to meet with you. I really have a hard time blocking time, number one. Number two, sticking to it. So it's a discipline I need to work on. And every time I get an assistant, I'm just like, well, I could just send the email myself or do these things. So it's just, that's an area of growth for me. But once I get confidence in someone, then it's great for a visionary, right? To be able to pass things down, know they're being done, and then you're ahead of the team kind of leading, and that definitely helps drive growth. That's what makes us entrepreneurs. But as we wrap up, there were a couple things that you said. You said that when you stop delaying and take ownership of your health, everything changes: your clarity, your energy, and your leadership. Can you unpack that for a little bit, like what that actually looks like?
Yeah, I think most people don't realize how much their health impacts their actual performance and their mood, even their leadership. So all these things are the fundamental kind of foundation of all of that is your health and how your body is functioning. If you're not getting the right sleep, you're going to be, not only are you going to not perform as well, you're going to be moodier. You're going to be, you may miss deals because you didn't get enough REM sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Now that might seem like an exaggeration. I promise you it is not. Our REM, just one small example, REM sleep is our kind of natural anti-anxiety medicine. If you notice yourself being more on edge, yeah, some of it could be anxiety. Just there's too much pressure on you, but some of it might be that you're cutting your REM sleep short. And guess what you shouldn't do with that is put yourself to sleep with some alcohol, because that blocks your REM sleep even more. And it's this constant cycle. And veterans are notorious for that.
Yeah, it's not just alcohol. Like every store now, right, in the pharmacy section, they have 500 different sleep aids, Tylenol PM, Alka-Seltzer PM. There's no way that you can get the same level of sleep, right? I'm not the expert, but I assume there's got to be, it's not just alcohol, but the number of sleep aids out there. I just happened to notice it the other day. It's a whole row in CVS trying to put people to sleep, and then the other row is Celsius, Monsters, energy drinks. It's like jack yourself up and then fall asleep, right?
Yeah, and then you have acid reflux and all these things. So yeah, I mean, just disciplining yourself to take care of your health as a fundamental, it pays dividends in your performance. I mean, I'm sure most of your listeners have had moments where they can't even hardly find the words, where they have severe brain fog, or they've had moments where they're just, say in a flow state, if you will. That's not an act. Well, they may not have realized it, but that doesn't have to be an accident. That can be intentional. That can actually be curated. So that's what I'm trying to help people with. That's what I love doing. A lot of my clients, they're fun to work with. It's the opposite of, I love working in the hospital. I love helping really sick people come back from the brink of death. It's extremely rewarding, but also it's very rewarding to work with a high performer who says, well, doc, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then they do, and then they have the results. That is fun. So I would encourage people to, if nothing else, at least start doing some cardio, get your sleep right, start eating right. And, if you don't know what to do, a lot of people, they procrastinate because, one, they're afraid of commitment because they don't think they have enough time, or two, they don't feel a clarity on where to start, right? They don't feel comfortable starting on their own. So get help, do whatever you have to do to get started now, and don't delay.
Yeah. And it's very defeating, right? Because it's how you wake up every day. If you don't feel good about yourself, if you're overweight, I see these people lose a couple 100 pounds. I'm like, that takes resilience to do that, and commitment. I have a hard time times like just losing 10 pounds. I'm in pretty good shape, but the commitment that takes, because it takes such a long time to see results, and it's your body and your mind that's affecting you. So listen, David, I want to thank you for being a member of the House of Bricks community, for sharing today. If people want to learn more about you, how can they get connected with you? I know you're on LinkedIn, and I know you wouldn't tell me to promote you in any way, but a great human, expert at his craft. And I know you can help a lot of people out there. If people want to get connected with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a good way to connect with me if people are on LinkedIn. DrDavidYerkes.com, and that's DrDavidYerkes.com. But LinkedIn, Dr. David Yerkes, Instagram, Dr. David Yerkes. That's kind of all the socials. So yeah, whatever is your preference. I do respond to messages, and I'm happy to help people out.
Well, I appreciate being on today. And as you know, part of our mission is to serve veterans stepping into entrepreneurship, and 25% of our annual subscriptions in the month of June are going to a 501(c) nonprofit called Post Veterati. Evan Guzman, him and I got connected in January. I just keep getting all these great veteran contacts that are making a huge impact in a very underserved market. Those that lay down their lives for a country, leave their families behind, like you mentioned. That's a huge sacrifice. And so we really want to get behind that mission and really create opportunities and impact. So we're donating 25% of our annual subscriptions for the entire month of June to Post Veterati. If you have not subscribed to our newsletter, it's houseofbricks.substack.com. And you're going to get early access to special offers, episodes like this one delivered straight to you. I'm going to continue releasing new business content, and most of what I'm teaching you from are my own failures that followed that test, fail, learn, grow model. It's not a set it and forget it mindset. It's really a lifestyle that you can adapt, and it's exciting. There's peaks, there's valleys, and what I encourage people to understand is the valleys are not something you want to waste. That's where you're going to grab those resources to climb the next mountain. So I want to thank everyone for joining, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.